This is ZNS Total Sports, brought to you by Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center.
Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Kelsey Johnson. Welcome to Sports Tuesday. Some of the world's best skippers stepped on board Bahamian sloops and fell in love with the unique boats, as well as the navigational skills of our local skippers. These sailors, inclusive of Olympians, were in town for the recently held Star Sailing Championships. In this report, our Jonathan Benson spoke with Reverend Dr. Philip McPhee, who too boasted and bragged about this latest achievement.
The Star Sailors League 2015 World Finals closed out with a reception on Saturday night at the Nassau Yacht Club, and regatta consultant in the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources, the Reverend Dr. Philip McPhee, says this event truly was history in the making.
The first time in the history of our country that Bahamian sailors and sloops were shown to the entire world. The entire world. That means that every nation in the world saw sloop sailing in the highest ranking of sailing in the world by Olympic sailors and world-class sailors. So we have achieved something this week that we have never achieved before, because we have had international sailors before, but it was never shown to the world in such a fashion. If you go on YouTube, you can see it.
In terms of local sloop sailing, Reverend McPhee says they may also look at implementing a similar system to that of the Star Sailors League.
It's an elimination. It starts from 20 to 10 to 7 to 4. And then the winner of the last race is crowned the champion. And that sets them apart in such a way that it makes the enthusiasm so great that everybody is eager to participate.
Michelle Nicholas is the coordinator for the Star Sailors League, and he says they are more than willing to help out with sloop sailing here in the Bahamas.
Speaking with Reverend McPhee, with the government to organize something like a week for the sailing.
He wants 30 C-class boats on the first week in December in the Bahamas, which means that there will be over 60 sailors that will come to participate in this grand finale of closing out the regatta season next year. Next year, the regatta season will not close out in Harbour Island. It will close out at the Nassau Yacht Club in beautiful Montague Bay, and it will be an outstanding feat to see that happen.
The outlook for local sloop sailing trending upward as we head towards 2016. Jonathan Benson, ZNS Total Sports.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. There's no doubt that the Regatta Conclave was a smashing success and has left all Commodores optimistic about next year. One thing the Commodores are confused about is why sloop sailing is not the national sport. Here's what Minister with responsibilities for sloop sailing, V. Alfred Gray, had to say about the matter.
And I don't know how we will arrive at a consensus as to which should be, and that may be a part of the problem, because everybody is not convinced that sailing and sloop sailing is the national sport. I think the majority of us do, and I'm hoping that we can get everybody on board to see why sloop sailing should be that. And I repeat myself, there's no other sport of which I know that have galvanized the Bahamian people, not just the players or the sailors, but the Bahamian people more than sloop sailing in our country.
Well, I'm hoping the fact that people now realize that the National Family Island Regatta, and in particular, the sport of sloop sailing should be the national sport of the Bahamas.
The track and field fraternity were very shocked when Dramico Archer remained on the executive board of the B3As. Archer, who was on Mike Sands' ticket, was the only one that was returned to office as General Secretary of the association. The elections took place more than a week ago, and Archer said it is now time to move on in unity, not to point out who is who and where they belong.
I don't know why they're surprised. My mandate was not to consider one side of the administration. My job as chairman of the council was to represent every constituent. And I think that was really the deciding factor with my returning to this administration. I think that now that the lines are blurred, we have one resolve, and that is to advance track and field. And I think that we must blur those lines and become more unified. There's a conversation about one faction against the other faction. That is the primary reason why I believe that we will remain divided. We must change the conversation. As General Secretary, I believe that my function is one to really bridge the gap between all of our stakeholders. Our primary stakeholders are athletes and coaches, and we must represent them without fear or favor. And that is why I think I returned. And the conversation must be that.
Sticking with track and field, Olympian Tonique Williams said it's time to rebuild relationships that were lost with the athletes. Williams is the newly elected first vice president in the B3As.
One of the pillars that we have is renewing stakeholder relationships, and we included that in our mandate because that is so important. We can't talk about building facilities, we can't talk about producing champions if we, first of all, don't have relationships. We have to be able to have relationship with parents, with coaches, with athletes. And so one of the key things that you will see us do within the first month of being in office is really reaching out to our athletes, finding out what their needs are, listening to their concerns, and trying to bridge the gap that I would say personally I didn't feel was there when I was an athlete, and I'm talking about a junior athlete. And so this isn't something that was just existing during the last administration. It's something that has existed for a long time. And so that is one of our key mandates, and everyone on this team has pledged to make sure that we rebuild those relationships.
That's all the time we have for sports. I'm Kelsey Johnson.